Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cece Brinker, and I'm the Director of Student Life. And I have the pleasure of being with you this evening to share with you some tips on effective retreat planning. My topic this evening is relax, rejuvenate, reevaluate effective retreat planning. This is a presentation that's one of several as a part of the iLead Spring Leadership Workshop Series. So hopefully this evening I'll be able to give you some very practical but also very valuable tips that will help you to plan an effective retreat for your RSO or your organization as a whole. First off, I want to start with just a general introduction and just basically share with you that typically when people think about retreats, it's something that conjures up excitement, relaxation, and fun. But also, a retreat should not be something that happens just because it has happened before. Typically, I find with registered student organizations is everyone does a retreat. And typically, when you say the word retreat, it doesn't conjure up excitement, relaxation, and fun. What it conjures up is, oh, not again, we've got to attend a retreat. And I'm here to tell you that retreats are fun. They should be relaxing. They should be an opportunity to bond and get to know each other better. But you should walk away with at least a plan or a sense of ownership of planning something for your future, for your organization as a whole. A poorly planned and executed retreat is worse than not having a retreat at all. So for those of you that are used to the mundane retreats that you plan every year, that you automatically have in your schedule and you mandate and request that your members go to, that's not the retreat that we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you some practical steps for planning it and making sure it's an effective retreat, but one that's also fun for your members and your organization. Secondly, the key to planning a retreat is to have plenty of time. I find one of the #1 challenges to student groups that are planning retreats annually is they don't allow for enough time. Sometimes their retreats are mini retreats, or they're, as I call, a car wash retreat, where they're trying to plan an event because they have to, and so they do it with not enough time in mind and shortchange their members into having a very well-rounded experience where they gain something from it. So time is going to be one of your most valuable and precious resources when you're planning your organization retreat. Another key point is with good planning, a retreat can be a dynamic tool, and especially a tool that you can utilize in building your team or helping your group refocus. A lot of times groups that are having difficulty during the school year, a retreat is a good way to revitalize them, to recharge and re-energize them to finish out the school year on a positive note and a successful note. So realize that this is a very effective planning tool when your organization is struggling throughout the school year. What's the purpose of a retreat? I don't like to get into retreat planning because, again, I think sometimes student groups find themselves bogged down with doing a retreat, but really don't understand what's the purpose of it. To me, that's one of the first things that you need to think about when you're planning your retreat is, why do we want to do this retreat? Are you doing this retreat because you're required to? Are you doing this retreat because your advisor says you guys need to do a retreat? Or the executive officer say, guys, we've got to get together and plan a retreat. First and foremost, think about what you want the retreat to be for your members and for your officers and your advisor as a whole. You should know what you want to accomplish at the retreat. There's a purpose for this retreat, so just don't have it because everybody needs to be there and it's mandatory and it's written in your constitution or your bylaws that you have a retreat every year. A lot of times it's good for training your officers. If you're going through officer transition, your retreat is a good starting point for your outgoing officers and your incoming officers to transition in and out of their positions. Another opportunity for retreats, it's a good way to deal with conflict. Organizations are often plagued with conflicts among their members. A retreat is a good way to specifically sit down and collectively address some of those issues, whether they're personal, whether they're just organizational, in a way that you can focus on dealing with the problems and resolving and moving on from that point. So it's a good way to deal with conflict in your group. I mentioned earlier, it's a good way just to re-energize your board. A school year is a long year, and if your organization has had some challenging times through that semester, there's a lot of apathy among your membership. You have officers that aren't being very effective at their position. Here's a great opportunity to regroup and re-energize not only your executive board, but also your members to get them back on track. And then the biggest thing is you want to figure out in your retreat, what are the specific objectives and goals that you want to accomplish in that retreat. So purpose is first and foremost important with planning your retreats. Here are some specific reasons that I find with a lot of the student groups that I've had an experience of working with and participating in retreats. Some key reasons or fundamental reasons why your organization wants to have a retreat. First and foremost, to motivate your members. Every student organization has new members coming in every year, and this is a great way to get them acclimated and transitioned into joining this organization and what it has to offer them. It's a great way to set goals. If you're planning for next year and you're trying to come up with a plan for what you want to accomplish, a retreat is a great opportunity to sit down and see what you did well from that current year and what you plan to do differently and establish goals to achieve those things in the upcoming year. It's a great way to get your members to increase their commitment to the organizations. Again, a school year is a long time if you're a very involved organization on campus, and sometimes your members lose their interest. If they're overly involved in other organizations, that's an opportunity for you to regroup and to get them to refocus their commitment to why they joined that organization and what you need them to contribute to be effective in that organization. You want to evaluate the progress of your organization. If you're doing a retreat at the end of the year, this is a great opportunity to say, what did we accomplish? What more could we have done? What else do we plan to do? What did we learn from the things that we accomplished this year to help us be a better organization or a better officer or a better member for next year? So you want to assess and evaluate your year as an organization and be honest with yourself on what you did well and what you have room for growth and improvement. It's a great way, as I mentioned, to transition your new officers and your outgoing officers. There's nothing worse than being excited about being a new officer and you come into an organization and you really have no direction in terms of what's expected of you in this new role. So a retreat is a great starting point. As your officers are leaving, they can share their knowledge, their experiences in terms of what they accomplished, and maybe even give them some practical advice to help them be successful in the job. And so a retreat gives you that opportunity to make that happen. Resolving the conflicts was another important point. When you're dealing with difficulty in organizations and people may not be getting along for whatever reasons personally or organizationally, take time out in that retreat to address those issues. You can't be effective in your organization if there's dissension among your ranks. So retreat gives you a time to do that. If you deal with your conflict in your retreat setting, be honest, be open, and be open to change if you plan to move on from that point where the conflict is brewing. It's a great opportunity to bond and build teamwork. That's one of the best experiences for new members and returning members, is getting to know each other and build a network of being a team, whether it's an office staff, whether it's a student organization, whether it's a company, whether it's an intramural team. Teamwork is going to be important if you're going to be successful. There's not anything that your organization can accomplish by just a handful of people along. Everybody has to have a sense of purpose, has to have a role, and has to have a sense of, I'm a part of this team and I can make a contribution to its success. And overall, your retreat should be fun. No one wants to go to a retreat where the whole time everything they're doing is hearing the same people speak over and over again, or they're having no activities, or they're not engaging each other during that opportunity or that time together. So your retreat has to be engaging, has to be fun, and has to be something that your members feel like they will enjoy as well as learn from. A key factor when you're planning a retreat is just don't get people together and sit around a table and say, we've got to put a retreat together. Think about when you should have a retreat. And there are 3 key times, or actually 4, that I would recommend in terms of you thinking of and your plans in the future for having retreats. First and foremost, the transition retreat. That's typically around the time of year that your organization is planning to have officer elections, and you're going to have your e-board transitioning out and new members and executive officers coming in. A lot of organizations will do their elections in the spring, So if you're an organization that has, whether it's spring or fall elections, and it's around the time where new officers are coming in for the first time and officers are going out, I would recommend you plan a transition retreat. Because again, there's nothing like coming in as a new officer and not having direction or having resources or information to guide you into doing your job and being effective. The transition retreat can take place between your outgoing officers and your new officers, so it doesn't take your entire membership or your entire body to be a part of. This is something on a much more personal and individual level, and something where they can get together and make that process happen. Another key time is midterm. Typically that's halfway through the school year. So if you're in between semesters and your executive board is trying to regroup from how your organization finished in the fall, and you have plans laid out in preparation to take you into the new school year, a mid-year, a midterm, or midterm type evaluation, or actually not evaluation, but retreat, is a great opportunity. If you've ended the fall semester and you've had an opportunity to reflect on that fall semester, what did you do that you want to continue to do? What do you need to do differently going into the second half of the school year? Don't continue down that road if there's room for improvement, and the only way that you're going to actually know that is make the most of the opportunity to have a retreat in the middle of the school year. Beginning of the year is a practical time that new and also returning student groups have for a retreat. You're coming off of the summer semester at the end of the school year, and you're also going home for the summer, and so as you're coming back to start the school year, you want to have a retreat to kick the school year off to get everybody on the same page. You haven't been together as an organization, so here's your opportunity to have a game plan in place when you're planning to start the school year off. I would not recommend starting the school year and jumping right into whatever you have planned for the year, or whether you do it on a semesterly basis, without first and foremost regrouping your membership and your leadership and starting with a retreat. And then also there is an annual evaluation that should be at mid-semester. Again, what did we do right? What can we improve on? How effective was I in this leadership role? What programs and events did we do well that we can build on? Evaluate your organization as well as your leadership and your programs through the format of a retreat. And sometimes you can have a retreat anytime. There's nothing that says that these are when you just have to have a retreat. You pick the time that best fits your time frame for your members, for your advisor, and for your officers. But at any given time, you can have a retreat. Sometimes it's a mini retreat. Sometimes it's just a quick 1 day or a couple hour retreat to kind of get everybody regrouped and on the same page. So don't be limited, but these are the key times that I would recommend that you think in terms of planning and implementing a retreat for your organization. Who should plan a retreat? Retreats are the most effective when you have buy-in from your membership, and in particular your officers. There shouldn't be a one-person planning committee for your retreat. If you're going to have a good retreat and one that meets the needs of your leadership and your members, it's going to be important to you to have a retreat where everybody has a voice or plays a role, and particularly with the planning. I would suggest you form a leadership or actually a retreat planning committee. And there could be a chairperson of the committee and anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 or however members that want to be a part of planning, because there's different aspects of the retreat planning that we'll get into that you will need the assistance of members that want to be a part of that process. So I'm a big believer in students get out of something what they put into it, and retreat planning is very critical to members putting something into that and feeling a part of that process. Who should participate in a retreat? All your new members. Is critical to their transition. Your new officers, your entire membership. I would also recommend your exec board. That should be an expectation, is when executive people take on that role and members take on that executive role, there should be an expectation that they participate in a retreat. I would also invite your advisors, because your advisors are providing that guidance and that leadership, and they can actually serve a very effective role in behind the scenes and implementation of your retreat. Advisors are great resources, so that would be a great opportunity for them to provide some support to the retreat and the planners of the retreat, but also maybe play a role in the facilitation of some of the activities or the presentations that are a part of that. Alumni, if you have alumni members that are on the graduate level, or particularly in the community, and they want to stay connected to your organization, bring them in as special guests or presenters. Bring them in to give you input and feedback about some of the topics that you're going to be covering in the retreat. That's a great way to stay connected to those who have played a role in that organization who can serve as a resource at your retreat. Special guests. A special guest could be someone that you invite in from the university administration to present to your organization. It could be someone from the Student Life Office that you want to give a presentation. It could be an off-campus person. It could be someone who has a message or maybe has some expertise or experience that can share that with your membership and your leadership as far as your retreat goes. Where should a retreat be held? A retreat can be held just about anywhere, but I would suggest that you hold your retreat in a very practical location, one that is best for everybody. When you think about retreat locations, typically a meeting room setting is a great location. I've also seen retreats done outside, outdoor locations, especially away from where you typically have your events and activities on campus. An outdoor location, if the weather permits, is a great opportunity to hold a retreat at a local park, or possibly on a challenge course or something of that nature. So location is key. The key for that is also having your retreat in a place that you won't have a lot of distractions. I would recommend highly that if you plan a retreat and you're doing it off campus, make sure that cell phones and ground rules are laid as far as your members being able to participate fully in that retreat. And a lot of times if your members are bringing their cell phones, they're texting, or they think they need to check in with people regularly. You want their undivided attention and participating and contributing to the retreat, so your location plays a critical role in making sure there's not a lot of distractions that would prohibit that. How do you plan a retreat? There are some key steps and some very practical tips in planning that retreat, starting with what are the goals of your retreat? Is it to gather new ideas, to brainstorm and come up with new activities and events for the upcoming year? Is it working on a specific program or project, something that's a major fundraiser for your group or a major project that you're doing in the community? Is it also an opportunity to address the conflict in your group? You really need to identify why do we need to have this retreat if you want to get the buy-in from your members. And these are some of the practical goals that are set for retreats. Determine your retreat budget. A retreat just doesn't happen overnight by getting together in a meeting room. You don't have to have a very large budget to plan a retreat, but be prepared that there will be some real general expenses if you want to do a good job of having a very well-rounded retreat. For example, if you're taking your retreat off campus, you will have probably some facility rental costs associated with that. If it's to use a park location, there might be a minimal fee that you would charge. If you're using it somewhere on campus, depending on whether or not it's something that's a meeting room, those facilities are typically free for your use. So be mindful that that could be an expense. Transportation. If you're going off campus and taking your retreat off campus, be mindful that there may be a cost for transporting your membership to another location off campus, whether it's in town or out of town. A lot of times carpooling works out to save costs in that. Or if you're going anywhere that's an hour away or more, then you might want to look into other modes of transportation through the university, which also could have a price as well. You want to be mindful of costs for retreat supplies. If you're planning a retreat that's a half a day or an all-day type event, you're going to need some supplies to allow full participation. Typical supplies are pens, pencils, dry erase markers, marker boards. You have handouts. You'll have newsprint, so you do a lot of your brainstorming. Those are some real standard basic things. I would recommend candy, because if you're spending an extensive amount of time with your members in a retreat setting, it's good to have some snacks and some retreats. Bottled water, juice, things of that nature to keep your members engaged throughout the day. Another cost might be an outside speaker or a facilitator. If you're wanting and if you have the budget and it's important for you to bring someone in who can talk specifically to a specific topic or issue or challenge that your group is dealing with, then I would recommend bringing someone in as a neutral person who can share their personal insights. It could be, someone from another organization, a local civic group. It could be an administrator or someone just who has expertise in that particular area. Cooking or camping equipment rental. Again, if you're using an off-campus facility as a part of an overnight retreat and you're looking at staying in cabins or some type of resort setting, then looking into the cost of renting those camping rental facilities as well as the equipment associated with it would be also an expense that you may look to offset. There are quite a few within the surrounding areas, some off-site retreat sites that are having like campsites where you can actually enjoy the outdoor wood environment to plan your retreats. I find that sometimes those are some of the best environments, but be mindful of the weather during the time of year when you're planning to do a retreat in a camping setting. Food and refreshments, if you're having meals, anticipate planning for that. And your meals can be very cost effective. It can be as simple as you providing deli sandwiches or you're providing something on the scale of pizza. It doesn't have to be an elaborate sit-down type meal. It could be cost effective. Planning your retreat where the meal is an actual activity is a good activity for your retreat members as far as team building, because you can buy the products at the grocery store and then prepare the meal. And if you prepare the meal where your members are playing a role, that helps. So again, food supplies would be a practical expense that you can anticipate. Create your own menu and have your members prepare the meal as a great opportunity for team building. Prizes and giveaways, those are always good gimmicks when you're having activities as a part of your retreat. So if you're trying to engage your memberships and you're trying to make sure that they have an opportunity to actually participate and have fun, then buy some little trinkets, buy some candy, buy some things that you can use as prizes to award them for their participation in the retreat activity. Okay. Next, create a to-do list. There are several key things that you need to plan out that you need to take care of as far as responsibility. That's why buy-in from your membership is important, because that gives them a role in helping to create some of the things on the to-do list, but not only create those things, but also to follow up and be delegated those responsibilities. So you want to make sure, first and foremost on your to-do list, that you contact the facilitators or a special guest that you want to participate in your retreat. Whoever's presenting, it might be members or executive officers, it might be your advisor, it might be a special guest. Contact those individuals early, give them enough time so they can then put that on their schedule and anticipate preparing for your retreat. In addition to that, send emails or memos out to your membership. Let them know to put the retreat date on your schedule. And that's a priority, and they need to understand that's something that's an expectation for them to participate in advance. The more notice you give them, the more likely they will be able to attend and participate in the retreat. Create an agenda, calendar, and an evaluation form. You want to work on an agenda so you know and let your members know in advance what are we going to be discussing and going over and working on in this retreat. You also want to give them a calendar, because retreats are a great opportunity to plan ahead. So if you're looking at planning activities and events in the fall, bring a fall calendar so when you're in that retreat setting, you can formalize dates and potential plans for events that you plan to do in the upcoming school year. And you also want to have an evaluation form. At the end of your retreat, it's always a great idea to evaluate and give your membership and your leadership an opportunity to share with you, how did the retreat go? Did you learn anything? Did you find this helpful to the organization? So feedback is important, and giving those members and leadership that opportunity is as important as well. Also on your to-do list is reserve the facility. That should be done far enough in advance, because that can make or break whether or not you have a retreat. If you can't lock in the date and lock in a location to host the retreat, it's going to be very challenging to come up with a retreat on short notice and give your members enough ample time to prepare, and your presenters and facilitators time to prepare for that. In addition, if you're using a location that has more than one facility, confirm the rooms, whether it's meeting rooms, whether it's a challenge course, you know, whether it's a big social playroom, whatever the case may be. Make sure you schedule and lock in all the rooms and the facilities that you will need for your retreat to be successful. And you also then want to reserve equipment. If you're using a meeting environment that's indoors, it's important to plan in advance when you're reserving the facility and let the scheduling department or area know that you will also need equipment in that room. It could be for showing presentations, it could be music related, it could be microphones, whatever those technical needs are. Give them advance notice so they can be prepared for your attendance. Hold a final review meeting, discuss the responsibilities. Once you have your retreat list planned out and you have your list of duties and you've delegated those responsibilities to the membership that's helping you with the planning, you need to have a final meeting to review and make sure that all your bases are covered and all your details are followed up on in terms of responsibilities for the retreat. Who's taking care of the food? Who's getting all the supplies? Who's handling all the technical equipment and logistics? Who's working with the carpooling or the travel arrangements? Who's doing the icebreaker and presenting on, you know, the conflict issue? Who's handling the brainstorming session? Those are all things that should be well thought through with assigned individuals who have the main responsibilities of seeing that those things are taken care of prior to your retreat. I would suggest that you do that at least a week in advance to finalize your retreat plans and give your members enough notice to follow through on those responsibilities. You then make a checklist of what members should bring to the retreat. Typically, retreat settings are very informal, so you want to encourage your members to dress as comfortable. If you're going outside to an outdoor venue that's being utilized as a retreat, like a camp setting or a park, then you want to encourage your members to possibly wear tennis shoes, possibly shorts, t-shirts. If it's more of an indoor setting like a meeting room, they can still be just as comfortable in those same clothing. Check your weather, because if your weather is a factor and you're going to be doing activities outside, then they need to bring additional things in anticipation of maybe the weather not cooperating. But make sure your members know to prepare. If they want to bring extra things like water or extra treats and snacks, make sure they bring writing tools and additional paper so they can take notes. But make sure they come prepared to participate fully in that retreat if they're going to get something out of it. Make sure your meals and your snacks are arranged for. If the meals are to be provided at the retreat, then make sure that the catering department or hospitality area that is providing those refreshments and those meals have enough notice and have confirmed your meal and your arrangements. If you're planning to provide your own meals to make it much more cost effective, make sure you give enough notice to the places that you might be ordering food for, whether it's local pizza places or local sandwich shops. If you plan on preparing your meals and providing refreshments, make sure you give yourself enough time to go shopping with a list of things that you need to provide for the meal, and also make sure that those things are purchased far enough in advance. Questions that you need to ask after you've come through and confirmed everything on your to-do list is, who will you be inviting to participate in this retreat? As far as your guests, facilitators, and speakers. Do you have special activities or a project that's planned for this retreat? Encourage you to have special activities for the retreat, because no one wants to sit in a retreat and find themselves listening to a speaker one right after the other. So to engage people, the special activities play an important role in that. Will you be having small group discussions and sessions? I would strongly encourage that you have opportunities to break your members into smaller groups. Break them into partners. Do things in the retreat that puts them in an environment where they have to get to know their members and each other on a personal level. Don't use the room setting exactly like it is. Change your room setting up and move the room around and move the chairs and the table around so that they will have plenty of opportunity to be engaged with each other. But don't use the same format throughout the entire day of your retreat. And one way to break up that monotony is with small group settings or small group sessions as a part of that. Will you have interactive games or participate in team building exercises or icebreakers? I would strongly encourage student groups to have games and activities that are a big part of your retreat. Because again, one of the key things is you want to engage your memberships so that they get more out of the retreat on a personal and an individual level. And team building exercises, getting to know you exercises is a great way to do that. Icebreakers are a great way for members to get to know each other and some things about each other that they didn't learn before. Challenge and rope courses, if you're doing outdoor retreats, those are great team building activities as well that put people in organizations in an environment where they have to step outside their comfort zone, and they rely heavily on their members and their teammates to help them in resolving the challenges of the course. Those are also great opportunities as well. Personality training, there's a lot of exercises out there that help you to identify what is your particular leadership style. There's also things that help you to learn about the personality traits of all the members of that group. So there are some exercises that will help you learn and have basic understanding about yourself as well as your peers within the group. So again, I would encourage that there are interactive games and activities for the membership to participate in, and have a variety and a mix of all of these things would be important. The retreat evaluation process. When you've had the retreat, it's important that before the retreat is concluded, while it's fresh on everybody's mind, that you have a wrap-up, and that you then give the people that participated or played a role in that retreat an opportunity to evaluate the retreat itself. The members of your organization that were a part of the retreat, the planners of the retreat, that's a great opportunity for them to give you their feedback on what did they think worked best in their planning process. What did they think about all of the different aspects of the planning as well as the final results of what they put together for the retreat. So you want to give the planners an opportunity to assess and evaluate those components. The presenters of the retreat, you want to get all of their feedback and their recommendations. So if anyone was a person who facilitated a certain aspect of the retreat, whether it was a specific topic, whether it's an activity or an exercise, you want that individual or those individuals to give you feedback as well on how effective they thought it was. And finally, the participants of the retreat. Their feedback is going to be critical to the future success of the organization as well as future planning of future retreats. What did they get out of the retreat? Did they feel like they learned anything new about themselves, about their peers in the organization? Did they feel like the retreat helped them grow? Did they feel like the retreat helped their organization and would be beneficial to the organization in the future? So there's 3 different communities that you definitely want to assess and get feedback from the retreat while it's fresh in their minds. I would suggest that if you do an evaluation of a retreat, that you don't have it go on any longer, or you don't wait any later until 5 to 7 days after the retreat. The sooner you can do that, the fresher that feedback is going to be in the minds of the participants and the planners and the facilitators. Okay, did that just jump? Because I think it's jumped 2 of my pages. Okay. Okay, here's a sample ideal a schedule. There's no set rhyme or reason to the retreat itself, but here is a sample of a retreat and some key components that I would encourage you to consider, or your membership to consider in the future when it comes to planning your retreat. First and foremost, if it's new officers transitioning in and out, you want to make sure there's introductions and people know who's participating in the retreat, whether it's members, officers, advisors, presenters. Make sure that informal introductions are given. Start your retreat with an icebreaker or a team builder. It's pretty good if you start out with both of those types of exercises, activities, because the purpose of those is to get people comfortable in that retreat setting. There's probably going to be some individuals at your organizations that don't know each other as well as others or don't know each other at all. And so rather than jumping into some of the brainstorming and some of the discussion and presentations, break the ice and start it out with a fun activity or exercise. There's several out there that you can do to create that. One of the basic ones that a lot of student groups use is human bingo. And human bingo is a great intro into learning more about people, where you use a bingo card or you create a bingo card on a worksheet with some fun facts. And the goal of it is to go around the room and find people who match the facts until you fill your entire bingo board. It's a very simple exercise, but very powerful, and getting to know people in a very fun atmosphere. You want to also identify the retreat outcomes. You know, what is it you want to accomplish from this retreat? So don't just jump into your retreat with your members where they just assume they just have to be there, but share with them what you anticipate and hope they get out of the retreat experience itself. A good place to start is the state of your organization. If this is a retreat to start at the beginning of the year, or if you're assessing it midterm or mid-semester, or you're looking to assess how your organization did overall at the end of the school year, then take a look at the assessment of your organization through the state, what I call the state of the organization. You know, and every member and every officer can participate, because this is an opportunity for them to share and reflect their thoughts and their assessments of the group as a whole. And some questions that can be some guiding questions for your group is, first, have your members and your officers list 3 things that the organization did well, whether it's on the semesterly basis, whether it's on the yearly basis, but have everyone have an opportunity to share what do they feel was effective and what did this organization or our organization as a whole do well and accomplish. Another question that you could use to facilitate dialogue is have members and officers list areas where the organization can improve. And if people are being very honest, there's going to be room for growth and improvement. And that can be an exciting time for your organization if people are willing to share that from their perspective. And then another question that's a great question to ask is, what were the obstacles and challenges that our organization faced? If you're going to be anticipating going into the next year and making plans through your retreat, it's important to know what were your challenges, what were your obstacles, what were things that you have to get better at. And that's a great opportunity to share that information on an individual and an organizational level through your members. So start out by reflecting on what did our organization do, and have a very honest and open dialogue where everybody's input and feedback is welcomed and appreciated. For your incoming officers and your outgoing officers, it's important to have time during your retreat where they have some opportunity to meet, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's collectively as a group, to talk about transitioning in and out of those offices. Again, a lot of organizations miss this opportunity, and new officers come in not prepared to take on the challenges and the roles of their predecessors and learn from them and gain that knowledge and experience that help them in dealing in that role. So some key things you want to be able to do is have time in that retreat where those officers, whether it's a committee chair, whether it's an executive board member, where those individuals can have time to share those experiences. I would strongly encourage you to develop transition notebooks so that as an outgoing officer is leaving, they have a documented notebook of all the things that they worked on, things they accomplished, and some notes that they can share and resources they can share for the new person coming into that position. For the new person coming in, that notebook is going to be a great resource. So that would be a great opportunity to share that information at the retreat during a designated amount of time. Review job descriptions and expectations of those officers coming in to that. That's a great opportunity to share what are my duties and responsibilities and what is going to be expected of me in this new role or in this new position. And then also reflect on and review what did they accomplish, what progress did they make in that role, so that information is useful and vital to the new person coming in that position. You need to make sure that there's time for lunch, but I would encourage you to use every aspect of your retreat to really be productive. So rather than blocking out an hour or so where people get a break from the retreat, it would be great for you to also have that lunch be a working lunch. That's a great opportunity to do team building and bonding. I would suggest that you might break members up into smaller groups and give them a topic to talk about, so that that's a working lunch as a part of their retreat. You can also break them up into partners and have them have a topic or a subject that they share and talk about. So again, that's a very productive use of your lunchtime, rather than just breaking away from the group and stopping to eat and then coming back to get on track with your retreat. In addition to that, there should be time to talk about your organization expectations. If you have new members coming in, if you have outgoing members, if you have new officers and outgoing officers coming in, that's a great opportunity to talk to the membership as a whole about expectations. Expectations of members, expectations of officers, expectations of the organization as you're planning for your future. Review your constitution and your bylaws and your policies that govern your group. There might be some areas that you might want to designate as a project of making some improvements or some revisions in your policies and procedures, especially when you realize there's some things that may not have been covered or enforced from the previous year. You can also invite administrators or someone to come in to talk to your organization in your retreat about a specific issue. So that would be another practical time to bring someone in and talk about expectations, maybe expectations of an officer, expectations of an organization, someone who can bring their expertise in and share that with your membership as a whole. Goal setting. With every retreat, goal setting is a critical component of that retreat and of that organization, because goal setting gives you the direction and the map and the goals of what you need to accomplish or what you want to accomplish going into the next semester, going into the next year. So have some time set aside in your retreat to talk about a goal setting exercise. There's all kinds of resources out there about SMART goals that you can create. I would encourage you to develop at least 3 to 5 SMART goals for your organization as you plan the end of the year, or as you're planning going into the next year. There's various handouts, various activities. There's all types of resources on the internet that will help you to do a SMART goal activity for your retreat. Review your master planning calendar. If you're planning for the next year, don't wait until the school year starts and decide that that's the time that you want to work on setting your calendar for the year. That's often one of the biggest mistakes that groups make, is not taking advantage of a retreat where they can devote time to planning out their next school year or their next semester. If you're an organization that plans one semester at the time, I would encourage you to have some time built in your retreat to work on your master calendar. That would include all of your weekly or bi-weekly meetings. That would include any back to school week activities you're planning, any special events or programs, any projects that you work on, any deadlines that you anticipate having, whether it's working on deadlines for your recruitment drive, whether it's having your social party, whether it's having a co-sponsored event with another group. All of those things should be thought out and discussed at your retreat and designated and documented on your calendar for the upcoming year. If dues are due, put that on your master calendar so your members know in advance and anticipate paying their dues far enough in advance. If you're planning to appoint people to committees, that should be on your master calendar. If you want to have an event on campus, that event should be on your calendar. The master calendar is very critical to your organization's direction and success in the upcoming year. Also devote time in your retreat to coming up with programs, projects, establishing meetings for the next semester or year, so that you have a game plan in place and you have direction to move your organization forward. Review your budget for the next semester, the upcoming year. If you don't have a big budget, whether it's a $100 budget, whether it's a $2,000 or more budget, make time in your retreat to talk about potential costs and expenses that you anticipate for the upcoming year or the upcoming semester, so that you will know that you have funding support to move your organization ahead for the next year. Having a good budget, whether you're planning an individual event, whether it's your budget for the entire year, takes time to do, and devoting time to your retreat to do that is a fundamentally sound thing for an organization to do. And then you want to also, as you're coming to the end of your retreat, is talk about the outcomes and the wrap-up. You know, openly discuss with your memberships, what did they like about the retreat? What did they gain from the retreat? What would they like to see improved? Did they feel like the retreat was beneficial to them? That's a reflective time that officers, members, advisors, from their perspective, can share what they got out of this experience and whether or not it's something that you would recommend improving or doing again. And then you want to devote time, if your retreat goes into the latter part of the evening or the afternoon, you want to devote time to, again, having dinner or having some kind of activity at the end of that retreat that's fun and engaging for your membership. Okay, that's pretty much it, wrapped up in a nutshell. There are some retreat resources. We'll be providing those online as a part of the iLead workshop series. Hopefully you've found some very helpful points, some practical tips, and some information that will prove useful to your organization and your membership and leadership as you look into planning for the next year. We wish you good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the Student Life Office, and thank you for participating in this retreat.